welcome to this NDTV special. The horrific gang rape of a 23-year-old medical student and her subsequent death has indisputably been an inflection point in how this country looks at gender, at how we as people look at ourselves, at our society, in the place of young girls and young women in our society. There have been many questions asked since this horrific incident. Questions about why the onus is on young girls to somehow ensure that they're safe. Why are the restrictions placed on their clothing and their hours of movement instead of on the state that should be keeping them safe? What do we make of the series of bizarre and sexist comments that we've seen by politicians of all hues? What about the fact that this time we really saw an outpouring of anger onto the streets, not just of Delhi, but across India? Is this going to change something? Are our young people, in a sense, standing up for what's been called a potential social revolution? And were these protests mishandled? Were they handled in the way that they ought to have been? Where does the buck stop for what went wrong? And whose accountability is it to ensure that this never happens again? To look at all of these issues, we're coming to you today from Miranda House. We've chosen a college because in many ways we believe the protests were really about young India and many of the protesters were university students. With us today is the Delhi Chief Minister Sheila Dikshit. It's been a very challenging set of a few weeks for her, and I know many people are going to have many questions for her. Of course, Miranda House is also Sheila Dikshit's old college. So we're asking her today to rewind to her life as a young woman and then relate to what every young woman in this country is going through. Before I ask Ms. Dikshit my first question, I just want to put a poll to all of you. How many of you in this Heritage Hall of Miranda House were actually out on the streets joining the protests and part of those marches? Raise your hand. And I think that's an almost 100%. Keep those hands up, because this is an image, I think, that says something. This is an image that says something about young India, about how angry they've been, how passionate they've been. Sheila Dikshit, this is probably a younger generation talking to your generation saying, maybe you did not, and when I say you, I mean the entire political establishment, including you. Maybe you did not understand how deeply angry we were. When you look back at what happened, do you believe that you and others miscalculated the depth and the extent that young people like the ones here today were angry and upset?
It was a ghastly incident, something I have never seen in Delhi before, and I hope we never will see it again. The anger was there across the board. With us, it was anger and pain, and a kind of a helplessness to what do we do in a situation like this? The real anger was amongst the young people who are sitting here.
Yeah.
They expressed it in a way, we felt it in a way, but I think there was no difference where the anger, the disappointment, the angst, and the shame that we had brought upon ourselves. So you can put it differently, but I don't think there was a difference in what you were articulating and we were articulating in a very different way.
I interviewed you first when the protests were just beginning. And I remember saying to you then, Ms. Dikshit, I'd like to see the Delhi Chief Minister out there with the students expressing solidarity, saying, I understand what you're feeling. You did eventually go to Jantar Mantar, as it were, not India Gate, because the police had imposed restrictions. You were booed, you were heckled, it wasn't pleasant for you, but many people turned around and said, if she can come now, why didn't she come earlier? Why wasn't that her and her government's first instinct? Looking back, do you feel bad that you did not go that first day?
No, I must tell you this thing. There will always be differences of opinion. Why didn't you do it now? Why did you do it yesterday? Why couldn't you have done it tomorrow? These are matters of judgment. But I was upset, I was very upset on the day when I went. There was this candle that everybody was supposed to light up at 7 o'clock. I thought if I went earlier, I wouldn't cause the kind of commotion that a small VIP like me also can cause. And there were these people who booed. I was told there would be booing, but I said, no, I have to do it. I went there. And managed to light my candle. This was indicative of my feelings, and it was just lighting a candle, being one with you, showing my solidarity and my feelings that your feelings and my feelings are the same. We are solidly behind each other where this incident is concerned. There were some people, unruly elements, I know exactly who they were, but it didn't bother me very much. And I went, said my little prayer to that soul, and also managed to light the candle. I think that was done. Now you can have a difference of opinion. Why didn't you go on this day? Why didn't you go there at that time? Why didn't you go at 7? Why didn't you go? But I consulted my conscience and went.
There was an impression that the genuine protesters, because you spoke about unruly elements who mixed in with these young students, but these were young students. They're the girls and boys sitting here. They're not no. People who should have been. No, I'm saying the genuine protesters. The genuine protesters.
No, I am not implying by any chance that anyone here was not there. Was a hooligan or did an active hooligan.
Exactly.
They were also expressing them, but they were expressing it in a different way. You know, there were some people who were there who were trying to politicize it. That I felt was bringing down the dignity of what we were feeling.
India's #1 news app just got even better. Download NDTV's new app. Fully optimized for retina display. Full screen view. Faster response time. And Sudoku. NDTV's new iPad app. Download now.